Go ahead and call this meeting to order at 1:10. Madam Clerk, note that all three members are present, and I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the January meeting.
So move. Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Awesome. All right, we'll move straight into presentations. I had requested that we get an update on the sanitary sewer overflow, given that the Connery River Keeper released a report showing that we still have a pretty, I think, notable amount of sewage spills in the city of Columbia. Would like to understand its impact on our water, as well as, what are our continued steps to mitigate. So ACM Shealy, will pass it to you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Good to see y'all. And I've asked our Director of Utilities, Frank Eskridge, to give us a little update on kind of a year-end review of what happened with sanitary sewer overflows, what's happening with our wastewater collection system and treatment plant. So, Frank, if you'll lead the discussion, y'all feel free to ask questions as we go through it.
Certainly. Let me make sure I'm doing this right. Dr. Bustles, member of the committee, thank you for your time today. I'll do my best to give you some information and some context about our sanitary sewer overflows that occurred in 2024. We'll go through this as quickly as possible. I've got slides for you today talking about a multi-year recap on our sanitary sewer overflow statistics, focus a little bit on the 2024 year in particular. Just a very brief discussion of what goes on at the Metro Wastewater Treatment Plant. The two wet weather events in 2024 that affected us a great deal, Hurricane Debbie, and then about a month later, Hurricane Helene, and then just a general discussion about sanitary sewer overflow causes, and then some of the things that we're doing to address that. This is a chart on the left and a chart on the right. The chart on the left has the number of sanitary sewer overflows. The chart on the right gives volumes. Okay, so the chart on the left goes all the way back to fiscal year 9. So that's about 15 years worth of information. You can see the general trend that we have with the work that we've been doing under our consent decree to improve the sanitary sewer system so that we won't have sanitary sewer overflows. On the right, you see the quantities. We have shown in red some of the overflows that were really not part of the collection system, but had more to do with the plant itself. Because when we have a unintended bypass at the plant, the numbers tend to be very large, and it really doesn't reflect the progress that we've made out in the collection system.
What causes it at the plant level?
Well, most recently in 2023 and then again in 2024, we had catastrophic power failures at the Metro Wastewater Treatment Plant. And I'll give you a little bit more detail on that in a second, but if we don't have the electricity or if our equipment doesn't work, then our system doesn't work. So that's why you see that red number in 23 and then better numbers in 24, but even that's not where we want it to be. I'm not going to try to give you a headache by looking at this one. This is the number of SSOs per month. The only thing I want you to look at is that in 2024, the months are shown in blue, and they're on each month, they're shown to the right for that month. You can see in August and September, the blue lines are much higher than the other lines in those 2 months. That reflects the fact that we had things happening in August and September of last year that we have not seen in prior years.
What would attribute to this, to both August and September being higher as opposed to April of 2000? Yeah. What attributes that? What can it be attributed to?
If you remember last year, we had Hurricane Debbie hit the area in August. And then toward the end of September, Hurricane Helene hit the area. And those were significant wet weather events. And wet weather can overwhelm our system under certain circumstances. And that contributes to sanitary sewer overflows. Those are the primary reasons why those numbers are up for those 2 months, and that our annual total is higher than we wanted it to be.
Well, it fell back down in in October, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It sure did. Went back to a little bit more of a normal number. This next slide helps show you 2024 a little bit better. This is exactly what you were pointing out, Reverend McDowell. In August, see how high that number is for August? And then September, it was bigger than we want it to be.
That's right.
But I can describe that September number doesn't even include some of what happened in September because we were not able to quantify it. But I'll go into detail on that in just a second. Once again, in calendar year 24, this is the number per month of sanitary sewer overflows. You can see the August and September. We had 24 in August, 23 in September. Of that, 47 in those 2 months. 21 of those had to do with the wet weather associated with the hurricanes. So the average for those 2 months would have been about 13 a month if it had not been for what we experienced because of the hurricanes.
Okay. Okay.
This is the same chart, move forward just a little bit in time. This is the fiscal year. You can see the August and September from last year. The takeaway from this is we've got the first 3 months of 25 shown on here.
But it's going upward.
Yes, and if you, in the winter months are supposed to be our worst months, okay? And the takeaway is the first 3 months of 25 are better than the first 3 months of 24.
Oh, yes.
The numbers in 24 for the first 3 months are higher than the first 3 months in 25. But that doesn't change the fact of what happened in August and September of last year. So just the briefest of primers on the Metro Wastewater Treatment Plant. This plan view of the plant, north is to the left. If you were to stand on the plant and look back to what is the left, you'd see Columbia, downtown Columbia off in the distance. The Congaree River runs along the bottom of the page, okay? So you see the influent coming into the plant with those green arrows. There's an influent pump station and a preliminary treatment facility. Those are the first things that the wastewater sees when it gets to Metro. That's the speed bump that the wastewater has to get past to flow through the rest of the plant. If we can't get it past that spot, we cannot bring it into the plant to treat it, okay? And that'll become important in just a second. When Metro was first built in the early 70s, it was train one, okay? There was just one train. So you see, you follow train one down, it goes through various levels of treatment. It comes over, we chlorinate it to make it safe, then we take the chlorine out to protect the environment, and then the effluent goes into the Congaree River. In the late 80s, early 90s, train two was built because Columbia continued to grow. So now we have two trains, effluent comes in, it splits, it goes down the page, effluent goes out. As we pull solids out of the wastewater, we pull those over and those go back up toward the top of the page through the solids handling that we have, and then it's hauled off to the landfill. Okay, so in a nutshell, that's how Metro works. But the main thing I wanted you to get in your mind is that we have to get it in to the influent pump station and the pretreatment facility. If you were to go out there, you'd notice those buildings are about 3 or 4 stories tall. What happens is the liquid flows by gravity through the rest of the plant from that spot, high to low. The solids get pumped back to handling and then disposal at the landfill. But we have to get past that entrance. Now, in August, Hurricane Debbie showed up. We had heavy rain throughout the area, and I look back at the records. We actually had 3 days of rain in Columbia before the hurricane even hit us. So our system was fairly well overloaded before the hurricane actually arrived. What happened here, you're looking at some switch gear. This is like an industrial-sized walk-in light switch, it is the pathway that the electricity for this plant comes through. Well, that switchgear failed and knocked out power to the entire plant, okay? We had repairs made on an emergency basis. We were able to get part of the plant restored within about an hour. That 1 hour where we were not able to bring wastewater into the plant created the overflow that contributed to those high numbers that you saw on the quantities out in the system. After this event, the replacement and rearrangement of the electricity at the Metro plant became an emergency priority, okay? And you folks have approved over the last few months some emergency work that is now essentially complete. That switchgear is no longer in use. And we now have a much more reliable electrical feed into that plant. And I want to extend my personal thanks for that, because that is a helpless feeling when you get a call and they say the power to the Metro plant's out, because everything stops.
Frank, it's probably worth pointing out, the flow rate that was coming to the plant at that time was probably in 80 to 100 million gallon a day flow rate. So we're seeing really, really high flows, well in excess of what an average day flow would look like.
Was that because of the fire or what?
The rain. The rain had saturated and filled our collection system. The river levels rose, and that was contributing to the flow. And so, as we see during storm times, we were seeing a peak flow event, and at the same time, you had a power outage. So the fact that we didn't spill more sewer than we did is
It's a miracle.
it's impressive
Yeah.
that we were able to respond as quickly as we could.
Let me ask you this.
Yes, sir.
Comparatively, the switchgear burned out, for lack of a better word. What took its place?
We basically upgraded all the equipment. We were
Okay.
able to bypass that older switchgear.
Older switchgear.
With newer equipment and a newer ringed network of power line around the facility. So there's some redundancy in terms of.
All of that we took out.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And one other thing that was going on,
We would
and
not have another occurrence.
Not like that. No,
Not like,
sir.
okay.
there may be something else that happens, but it won't be
It won't be
that.
that. It won't be
It won't be
that.
that.
All right.
One thing I didn't mention is that over here to the left, there's a great big, what we call an equalization basin. It's the size of 15 football fields, and it's about 20 feet deep. When we have heavy flows come in, we can divert flow into that temporarily to try to handle the excess flows. Clint alluded to the fact our average day at Metro is 30 million gallons a day. It's designed to handle 60. During Hurricane Debbie, the EQ basin was already full from 3 days of rain, and we had 80 or 90 million gallons a day of wastewater coming into the plant. Then we had the power outage. So it was just a really bad compounding set of situations. So then we made it about a month and a half, and then Hurricane Helene arrived. And if you remember Hurricane Helene, it kind of blew through the area on a Friday, and by lunchtime the sun was shining. Okay? Well, it was heading to western North Carolina and the upstate of South Carolina. All that rain came down to Columbia the next couple of days, and if you remember, the mayor and Ms. Wilson had to have a press conference to calm people down on Monday because there was an errant social media post that said we were shutting down our water plants. Well, that was this storm, okay? So the sun's shining, but the river keeps rising, and what happened is the river rose so high that we could not get effluent out of the plant. The plant sits just above the river, and under normal circumstances, once you've treated the wastewater, it will flow out into the river by gravity. The river got so high, we couldn't get wastewater to flow out, and actually the river pushed back into the plant and overflowed some of our basins and then ran out on the ground back down to the river. Now, the average flow in the Congaree River right there is about 10,000 cubic feet per second. What was going on during that storm was over 150,000 cubic feet per second, 15 times normal. So that's why people were looking at the river and getting so uneasy, because it looked like 2015. In fact, the last time we had this plant back up this way was 2015. So that's how bad Hurricane Helene was on the flooding. The entire area around the plant was under about a foot of water, to the point that we had to bring employees in a different way, where we've got a little patch of high ground that we could come in on. So these things led to overflows out in our system. And this is the one at the plant where it was partially treated wastewater. We were not actually able to quantify that because of the way that it left the plant and made its way into the river. So what are the causes? In general, under normal circumstances, the causes of SSOs are collapsed lines, debris, and tree roots. So those are your top three lines there. You'll notice there's a darker blue line that kind of jumps up in 2024. That's your wet weather event, okay? That had kind of calmed down over the last 5 years, but last year it jumped up. The three causes that we know about, we have contracts. We're constantly working on this. So we have a contract to get rid of tree roots. We're constantly evaluating the system to fix collapse lines that may collapse. And we're also looking at wash lines to keep debris from creating sanitary sewer overflows. And then we also have our capital projects. These are things that you see come to you for approval, things like the Saluda River Force Main Extension, the Metro Wastewater Treatment Plant electrical reliability improvements that y'all approved a few months ago that are essentially complete, and then a couple of our lift stations that actually push wastewater to Metro. So I didn't want to take up too much of your time today, but I'd be happy to try to answer any questions.
So what are
that you
the
may have.
goals? Like, do you all set goals as a department to keep overflows at I mean, ideally it should be 0. Sometimes you have upwards of 30, 40, and some unaccounted for. What's the goal for this year?
There is a national average that we're working toward, and Clint, I think it's, 6 per 100 miles?
100 mile of collection system. We got
Per year.
1,000 miles. And so we look at those metrics, Dr. Bustles, and, sometimes the wet weather skews things a bit. I will say if we not invested $20 to $25 million in the Lake Catherine Improvement Project and about that same amount in Crane Creek, we would have spilled 2 to 3 times the amount. So we've invested heavily in wet weather improvements. We would like to get those numbers down in the 8 to 10 per month based on our size of system. Obviously, 0 is the goal, but for any wastewater utility, that's not really attainable for someone our size, but because things do happen. But reducing the frequency of occurrence and then attacking the high volume. The wet weather ones are the ones that are such a high volume. The unintended, partially treated overflows that happen when the river comes back on the treatment plant, that's what really makes the numbers jump, and it looks really bad. So we've been strategically trying to attack the rehabilitation and also those wet weather capacity projects.
That and our statistics include everything. We had a contractor dig into one of our force mains last year, 50,000 gallons. Well, that's on our tally, even though they caused it. We had a piece of equipment fail at a lift station, and that was 280,000 gallons. We had the piece of equipment, it stopped working. So that's when we're coming to you folks for lift station improvements and things like that, it's usually because we've got something going on like that we need to fix. That plus our system is getting a little bit of age on it. This equipment runs all the time, and after 30 or 40 years, it will wear out. So, but we would love to say 0.
Part of getting those numbers down, when we talk about sunsetting, the goal of sunsetting the consent decree and getting out from under that federal oversight, reducing the frequency of sanitary sewer overflows is part of that equation, as well as doing the projects that are within the infrastructure rehabilitation report and various other commitments that that we've made as we've evaluated the system. So we've got to spend the dollars to fix things that we've identified. And in turn, that should drive the sanitary sewer overflow frequency down. So it's already working, except for some events like Debbie and Helene and we're working on those.
You will see that it remedies some of the problems too, doesn't it?
I'm sorry.
It remedies some of the problems.
Yes, sir. And the rehabilitation work that we're
Yes.
doing is preventive. It's not all reaction to a collapse line or an overflow. There's a lot of preventive maintenance and lining and cleaning of sewer lines. We're spending tens of millions of dollars a year doing that type of work.
Need more money from the federal government to get these improvements done.
More funding is always good,
More
sir.
funding.
Yes, sir. More funding is always good.
Just the power, just the electrical improvements at Metro, we're in a different place. So we
God
appreciate
forbid
that.
we get hit with another huge storm. Well, already system has been overwhelmed before in the past, and we're trying to do what we can do, but we do need the money.
Yeah, I recognize that, but I think there's always gonna be things outside of our control. But for us to stay on top of the data and talk about the goals that we have to get better every year is gonna be important too. Because some of it is the system and our system. And I think all of us have been supportive of very expensive investments in the water system for you all. So I just wanna make sure we're getting on a path where we start to see it improve outside of some of the catastrophic events.
And we do appreciate it, and the system didn't get in this condition overnight, and we obviously can't flip a switch and fix it, because you have to spread the funding out, but y'all have been very generous to us in allowing us to fix the system and to do it in a way that, is responsive to the consent decree and the mandates, and, allowed us to meet every deliverable that's out there. And so, in our quarterly conversations with EPA, they seem very pleased with the progress that we're making toward, wrapping up the consent decree. So, we feel good about the place we are. It's not where we want to be, but we are making progress to get there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move into the next agenda item, which is the Solid Waste Division Route Growth and Efficiency. Ms. Samantha Yeager.
Thank you for having me this afternoon. Yes, I'm here to talk about our route growth and some efficiencies within the solid waste division. However, I want to wish everybody a happy Earth Day. Maybe it's Waste Day if we're talking about wastewater and solid waste. But I do hope everybody can come out Saturday to Soda City. We are having an Earth Day event on Boyd Plaza. So the recycling wizard and Cocky will be out there around 11 o'clock. So please be sure to join us.
9 to 1, right?
Yes, the celebration will be 9 to 1 during the market, but the mascots, might be a little warm out there for them. So, but they'll be there at 11.
That's fun. Okay, well, then you'll need to be there. You said that's fun.
It is fun.
Oh, now I know what the category for fun is.
Yeah.
But before we get into what we're here to talk about today, we do have to kind of go over the history of the solid waste division, where we've been, where we've come from, and where we're headed to. So the last big route adjustment was back in 1991 when we went from twice a week garbage service and added our curbside recycling program. That was in the little 18-gallon bins that you may see still around town. We did the roll carts for recycling back in 2015. But as far as garbage collection goes, this was the last major adjustment. Part of that history goes back to containerization. So we got our roll carts in 1980. We actually found a piece of history over in the Olympia area. This roll cart has an A serial number. Serial numbers tell us a lot of things. We are up to serial number TU. So this is actually a 1980s roll cart we found recently. It's just a piece of history to collect here. As far as technology advancements, our trucks have also improved over time. So we were strictly running rear loaders, which were low compaction. We have now moved to high compaction trucks, which allows us to haul more garbage in one load versus multiple loads back into the landfill. We've also turned into a hybrid system where we have automated side loaders, which are the trucks with the arm that comes out and we drive on the right-hand side. Those have actually advanced as well. So the drivers used to pull 3 levers to move that arm in and out. And then, of course, they'd come out with a hand cramp every day. But we actually now have a joystick system. The joysticks have improved over time. And now there's actually operations in the truck that you can press buttons for that arm to move. And then if we really want to go down the rabbit hole, we can talk about auto pack versus manual pack when trucks can actually set their cycle for packing the garbage on the trucks, and you can continue to collect garbage while they pack. While we had manual pack previously, the truck actually had to sit there and not collect garbage. So it's really an efficiency improvement that we've seen. So we're happy to have a hybrid system today. When it comes to route balancing, we have to balance our density and number of homes per day, our services per day, to make sure that our trucks are moving along and making sure that we are providing the best service to our residents. Over time, the division has collected data on how many additions we've had to our services. So since 1995, we've added close to 13,000 additional services while we reduced personnel and added street sweeping, litter collection, and among some other programs that we've added. So to kind of talk about each day, you can see Mondays and Fridays have had exponential growth. So our Monday route area is out Garner's Ferry. So you have big developments like Burnside Farms, Canary Woods, Honey Tree. And then on Fridays includes Percival Road up to Wood Creek Farms, where we've had exponential growth. While we've annexed the land a long time ago, we are now seeing homes being built at a quicker rate.
So do you just like add on these as they come, the developments, and just kind of see which one has the least amount of pickup and add that way? Or is it regionally done or district?
So as a new home is built, we incorporate it into our service today.
Okay.
Yeah. So every home we add, it's being serviced on our regular routes today.
And Sam, depending on the geography of where that home is, that's the route it goes on.
Correct.
So where you're seeing that growth, Dr. Bustles, that's why you're starting to see this disparity in the number of pickups per day.
Right. And on Tuesday, our major growth was in the Broad River Corridor and the Chestnut Hills Plantation neighborhood. And then Thursday, the genius that drew our route areas back in 1991 landlocked us on Thursday. So Thursday is our downtown university area, Shandon, Rosewood, which we have not seen a lot of growth in. A lot of that 800 homes is through annexations. It's not new builds where we're seeing
And
new
you can't
builds.
add to that one right now, as of now, with the current routes.
We could. I think the map will show you once we get into the
Okay.
maps. However, the proposal is to balance some of this so we're not on such a crunch with like Mondays and Fridays with it growing as much. So we've also worked with our annexation team looking at where the growth is, and this is a map kind of visualizing that growth since 2000. So all of the red areas, and it doesn't have it by year, unfortunately. So all of the red areas are new annexations into the city since 2000. You can see in the top right corner, that is your Wood Creek Farms, Percival Road. On the bottom, that is your Leesburg Road, Canary Woods, Honey Tree, Burnside Farms. And then in the middle, it's a little bit deceiving because that is actually state property right there in the middle, which we do not service. So we've had a history of annexing land and not so much already built homes. As I understand from history, the last annexation of homes was actually the Belvedere community, Capitol Heights, and Bayberry Mews, which was right around 600 homes that were already existing. So as these homes are built, we just continue to add to our routes. So our proposal is to balance the density and balance the services per day to optimize route efficiency, also to, consider safety, vehicle maintenance, employee morale, and unbudgeted overtime. The proposal is to run an equal amount of trucks each day. We do run Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. So this would also accommodate for future growth of the city, new homes, new annexations, wherever those may be. So where we're at today, we have funded our additional trucks. Those were funded in a previous budget year, and they are sitting at Public Works, ready to go to work. We've also funded 4 positions. 2 of those positions are already on our yard trash collection, and we are already seeing improvements on our route efficiency there in our outer areas. We've also budgeted our vehicle maintenance and our operating budget. So our current routes, this is our current collection area, and Robert will be handing out maps here shortly. On an industry standard, you're looking about 800 to 1,000 homes per route for a 10-hour shift is what we work. So right now we are over capacity on our routes. So we are proposing to change our route days. We are looking at changing almost 11,000 customers. So the 11,000 customers are out of our total 43,000 customers. And of that 11,000, we have a portion that would change their garbage and recycling day. And then we would have a portion that would change their recycling week. So they could go from a first and third to a second and fourth, or vice versa. For our total garbage changes, we would change roughly 6,500 homes. So you could be moving from Friday to a Monday, which would be Gregg Park, Purcell Road, south of I-20, so up towards Wood Creek. And then we have North Columbia, which would be moving from a Friday to a Tuesday schedule. And then we have in our hashed green area, which would be downtown area, Bull Street area, would move from a Tuesday to a Thursday. And then we have our solid green area, which is currently on a Monday, that would move to a Thursday as well. And those, you do have detailed maps, should have street detail on those maps in your packets.
Question, I'm looking at Elmwood Park. It looks like half of Elmwood Park would be Tuesday to Thursday, and the other half would remain the same?
So it is Cottontown, would be.
Okay, that's Cottontown to the road.
Right, so yes, Elmwood Park Road would remain on Tuesday, garbage collection, and Tuesday first and third recycling.
We split at Main Street.
We split at Main Street and Elmwood. And when we drew these routes, we did not look at neighborhoods, we did not look at council districts. Yes, every council district is affected, but what we did is we looked based on route efficiency, best roads, clear cuts. I mean, gosh, Robert and I argued over which street to cut on a Monday route. It was either one block or the next block. So we made these cuts based on the best way to route these trucks.
Of course.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And of course, since we're all confused, I'm confused, Robert's confused, we have come up with a really good communications plan. We have worked with our PR team here. We have felt that this is a very direct communication plan. So we would forego any social media, big news conferences, anything like that. So we want to do a direct mail program or a communication plan to our 11,000 customers. We've worked with GIS. We've worked with our banner team to make sure our addressing is extremely accurate. So we would do a postcard 45 days out from the switchover date, whatever date that may be. We have not decided that yet. And we would also send out a letter with a kitchen magnet detailing what your new schedule is, when the change will take effect. And then that magnet is a standing piece that will stay in that home as a reminder. Of course, we will also update our mobile application. That will be an automatic change. Customers will not need to change their new address. That will be an automatic switchover. We will also update the city website, forward-facing GIS. We could have the potential to meet with neighborhoods and business districts. And then the last key piece is the service. So on week 1, we will service the new routes and the old routes. And then on the second week, we will only do the new routes. So say you're moving from a Tuesday to a Thursday. You'll have service on Tuesday, and then you'll have service on Thursday, and then the next week you'll have service on Thursday, moving forward. So I have included some of the pieces in your packet and up here. Just a nice letter, again, explaining everything very clear and detailed. And then we also have our magnets and our postcards, right in line with our new city branding. So with that.
Talk about the colors of the magnets.
Oh, I know. The colors are very important. As you can see on the maps, we have red and yellow and green and blue, and We have purple and pink and gray. The colors are very important. So we have come up with a color coding system to talk about our recycling days. So if Councilman Bailey calls in and says, well, my kitchen magnet is yellow, our office staff can say, oh, well, your recycling is on first and third, your garbage is on Tuesday. It limits the time our customers are on the phone and has them an answer a lot quicker. So the coloring system works very well for the solid waste division.
Is there a word about how you get this word out totally to the communities involved? There are some seniors who's gonna have some real difficulty. They're used to having their garbage and recycling bins taken up
Oh,
at
yes.
certain times.
Yes.
How does that word metastasize itself within the community?
Yes, and I think that's why the direct mail is very important. Again, we have worked with our GIS team to make sure our addressing is extremely accurate. And we're all going to go through these growing pains together, our residents, our staff, our team. But we're here to serve, and we're going to make sure that their garbage does get collected. We are happy to work with the neighborhood groups, but again, the routes are not drawn based on neighborhoods. Neighborhoods could be split, but we're happy to open for suggestions as well on how to better get the word out versus mail.
Will there be a mechanism set up whereas you got a senior whose regular garbage pickup day is the day, and we've changed it? Is there a system, and I don't wanna be inundated with a whole bunch of calls, but what happens when their regular pickup date is changed? And they're waiting for their trash to be delivered?
Certainly, if they call our office, we're happy
Okay.
to send a truck back out and
Is that all right,
service
Robert?
that.
Is-
I'm gonna be partial, we're the number one service in the city.
Okay, good.
We're going to get the garbage.
We're going to get the garbage, don't worry.
I think there's a posture, Reverend McDowell, of grace. I mean, not.
Yeah.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
We know this is gonna be a transitional period.
Yeah, and I'm more concerned about the grace period, because once it get established, the change of the days would be all right. But up until that point, where there has to be a collaborative word from code enforcers, because if the bins are left unattended and they're still on the street, and a client has been used to having their garbage picked up and it's not there, and they ticket that garbage can.
Right.
What do we do?
And we will work with code enforcement on that.
good.
We've done it now when
Okay.
somebody's missed their service or we've missed them and code enforcement says, hey, pull your roll cart back.
Okay.
And we're like, please don't, we'll go service it, and then they'll pull their roll cart back. So we've already have that mechanism in place.
Have you guys thought about maybe the weeks leading up to it, if you had the service date change in like sticker format, just sticking it on the actual trash can?
We had not considered that just due to the manual labor of that. Based on 11,000 customers, we probably would have to hire somebody outside to do that.
Okay, so like when they're taking the trash, they can't just stick it on?
So
They-
our
the
automated
automated-
collection guys never get out of the truck.
They
Oh,
don't-
the automated, I forget
Yeah,
that
the
they're not-
automated guys would not
Right.
get out
Thinking
of
old
it.
school.
Yeah,
And fix it up.
yeah.
Got it, got it.
gonna be
I'm
real
just trying to
good
think of
reminder.
creative ways to change the,
Take your trash out.
No,
and go home,
and
like,
we have door hangers
Ooh,
too,
that's
so if you get a new roll cart, we could deliver a door hanger. I know our recycling team has door hangers when carts are contaminated, and it also promotes the mobile app as well. So
okay.
there's different ways to put the message out.
And like I said, I think, I couldn't say it a million times, but we're gonna go back and get the garbage. When they call our office and say, my garbage wasn't gotten, we're going to probably talk about the new days of service, and then we're gonna go back and get the
That's
garbage.
good.
And
That's good.
reset their plan again. And, this may last a month. This will be painful, but it'll be worth it for, I know, the solid waste division in the end, and service efficiencies to the customers. I know Samantha didn't mention it, and, there's a lot of times on Friday nights that we're out there till 7:30, 8, 9 o'clock picking up garbage.
And
This will stop that to where
Yeah.
we're actually picking up garbage at a time.
especially during the winter months when we're working in the dark.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's definitely a safety concern.
So is there anything you need from us?
Yes, we were asking for some direction here on how to move forward. So any,
I think the question might be, Sam and Robert, when would you like to implement?
Yeah. If you go back to the change, I think we're gonna slide with the
Not
changes.
tomorrow now.
Okay,
this one?
yeah, okay.
My gut would tell me end of July-ish. It's very light on yard trash, light on garbage because a lot of people are on vacation, so the volume's not there. So we would have time to adjust. That would
What about
be-
July 1st, since that's like the start of the new budget?
I don't know that this has any budgetary
thinking that
impacts right
start
now
of the new school year.
because
I would think.
I would think in
after
August.
school
After-
starts, probably starts.
Yeah,
Like
after
August
college,
1st?
I think August.
after
Maybe
summer's over,
September.
as a reminder, trash day changes.
it's still light. It's still light enough in August, September, and you get it through the
And between now
move-ins.
and the time, can we implant a word to communities with garbage?
Yeah.
That this is
change?
coming.
Yeah, that is coming.
So Councilman, we've talked about that quite a bit, and we've talked about using the Columbia app, and I don't know that we want to get 43,000 customers excited when we're only dealing with really 6,000 days of services and about 4,000 change of recycling days. And that's our biggest concern, is overloading our phone and everybody going, when's my service day? When's my new service day? When we just really need to target our 6,000 homes. And therefore, we don't get 43,000 people excited.
I still don't think that there's a issue with including it in the, solid waste section of the app saying, heads up, these are the new, it doesn't need to be the first thing you see in the app, but like, if you're going there anyway, you should be able to see that it's being updated. But I think my colleagues are saying like August 1st, maybe something like that would be a good time to work
Summer.
towards.
I could maybe push
September, yeah.
September 1st so we get the
Oh,
college
sure.
move-ins
Yes.
out of the way. I think
Yes.
that would be a very good target goal here.
That sounds good. As long as y'all think that the current solid waste staff can sustain for that long.
They're a very resilient team. So
Kristen
I'm
and her group are putting in exit homes.
yeah, if they weren't so good at their jobs.
Right, Kristen, there, sit so far.
I guess, procedurally, are we looking for some sort of endorsement from this committee to council? I don't know if there's anything to vote on per se, it's really more education.
Consensus.
The budget funding's there. The personnel are hired and
I
being
think it's
trained
just us,
now.
the three of us giving consensus, and I'll report it out to council at our next council meeting.
Yeah, because I do believe the full council would want to know about it.
Yeah. Yes. Let's go consensually.
Okay. So September 1st is what I think we're consenting to, and we'll share with the rest of council.
Okay.
What day of the week is September 1? What day of the week is September 1? Let's look at that.
We gotta think,
We'll work.
Oh, it's a Monday. Look at that.
We'll work Labor
Labor
Day.
Day,
We
a
work.
holiday.
We still work.
They do labor on Labor Day.
yes, we do.
If we didn't work that day, we'd have to work Wednesday, so it works.
It's a
Our guys love
it's a
to work.
swap. They do. Good Friday was a great day.
I'm sure it was.
But yeah, September 1st will be our target date.
Okay,
What day of the week?
it's a Monday.
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 And just
okay.
let us know if anything changes or if you need anything else.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Samantha?
Any other
All right.
questions?
Can we so put that in the record, Erica, that consensually we agreed on that?
Thank you.
Did you do that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you.
All right, we'll move to the last agenda item, which is the undergrounding of utilities. We have a member of the Columbia Tree and Appearance Commission here to chat with us about some of the work that they've been doing and the recommendations that they have. If you would introduce yourself for the record, that'd be great.
Yeah, so my name is Jim Irvin. I've been in Columbia since 1991. And when I moved here from the Low Country, grew up in a little town called Beaufort, met some of the folks in Columbia, and immediately recognized that they didn't really see how pretty Columbia was in many ways. And at the time, there were some pretty places, there were not so pretty places. And over the last, whatever that is, 35 years, I've watched Columbia move in the right direction, and I just think it keeps getting better and better. And that's why I was motivated to serve on the Tree and Appearance Commission. And I've gotten to work with some great people like Brian from the city and learn about a lot of the challenges. But two things that I want to talk to you about today is the value of a tree survey. Because Columbia, all the neighborhoods in Columbia, most of the neighborhoods in Columbia have a great tree canopy. And the challenge that we're facing is something that I read about in the state newspaper when I first here, which was that in about 20 or 30 years, all those trees that had been planted about the same time, right after the turn of the century, 20s, 30s, they're all going to be maturing at the same time. You can go to the next slide, or I can click.
Yes,
Click it
just click them.
if you'd like for me to. Oh, here it is. Great. Awesome. Thank you. These are the members of the Tree and Appearance Commission, and Patrick is here with us. Vi, who was supposed to be here, is in Costa Rica on a long planned vacation, so I agreed to step in, which I'm glad to do. But what is going to happen is that these trees that are providing so much value to the city and the different neighborhoods in the city and downtown in the city are all going to start reaching the end of their useful life close to the same time. Okay, so if the tree survey is a tool to help forestry manage that decline, because if you don't manage that decline, you end up with a lot of them dying at the same time, which can have a dramatic effect on the appearance of the city, our neighborhoods, how it feels, and that sort of thing. And so that's why we're here to make a very specific ask, which is an RFP. Okay, we don't know, how much that's going to cost until we get the people who do it and who understand it to make some proposals. And what that will enable forestry to do is what they are doing is, frankly, they're doing it as well as they can right now, but it will help them shift from being reactionary, right, where they're going to a particular tree and they're cutting it down after it's kind of gotten past the point of no return, so to speak, or being more proactive, which is if you identify the trees and categorize them as red, yellow, and green, then you can deal with the red ones, focus on the yellow ones, extend the life of the yellow ones, so that by the time the one that you planted to replace the red one that you took down, it's now mature, and that neighborhood it's not as dramatically impacted by the tree loss. So Savannah, Georgia, was faced with this situation about 5 years ago. They knew about it just like we have for years. They didn't do anything about it. And within a very short period of time, they lost a significant portion of their tree canopy. And that is a case study of what we're trying to avoid. Other cities have done this. Charlotte is one of them. Here's, I could click on the RFP, but I'll show you. They've put out these RFPs, and these experts will propose different ways to do it. Some of them may send all arborists out to accomplish this. Some do it in a way where they train people to go out and do it with an arborist kind of coming behind to check their work, so to speak, quality check their work. And that affects the cost, obviously, so there's pros and cons to each. And, you know, if you could find a lower cost option, that allows you to cover more area in less time. So there's a lot of different, you know, trade-offs here on how to do it. But this is the kind of the basic elements here. You know, you drill down and provide not just where are the trees and their condition, but what are their species and that sort of thing. And then actually recording the maintenance that you've done to them and that sort of thing. And so it helps for the proactive management of the trees. So any questions on that? Okay. And, you know, in terms of funding, you know, there's a lot of different ways to fund, perhaps. This is a list of all kinds of different funds. We would, mechanisms. But again, that's something I think that is a logical second step after you've got the RFP, because then you know the magnitude of the cost. And so, you know, the tree fund, for example, may be one of the more obvious, you know, tools to use for this sort of thing, depending on the magnitude. So the other thing that I'd like to talk about briefly.
Well, before you get to
Yeah.
move on, what's a city you would say of a great tree canopy outside Columbia that you like?
I'm sorry?
A city that you like that you think has a real good tree canopy, just landscape?
Charlotte, to some extent, some of the neighborhoods in Charlotte. I think Charlotte's downtown area has not done nearly as good a job as we have. I mean, I think Main Street looks super, Vista looks super, University looks super, State House. You know, I think some areas to see the difference, and this relates a little bit to the undergrounding piece, but if you look at Assembly from Green Street down to Pendleton, okay, you've got the Koger Center side of that street where the utilities are underground. You've got trees that were planted maybe, 15 years ago maybe. They're all now mature, and they're all provided shading, walking spaces for pedestrians on that side of the street. The other side of the street are private businesses. There's a gas station, a Wendy's, a Wells Fargo Bank, I think, on that side. All the utilities are above ground. And right at that intersection of Pendleton and Assembly, you've still got they're starting to attach, you know, utilities to the arms that so it's a nice contrast. And the other cities that I'll mention will be Atlanta. I mean, you know, Atlanta's got this reputation for being a city in a forest. And you've seen Holder kind of bring some of that, you know, thought process to Columbia when he built the buildings on Main Street and he did those parking lots right where First Citizens is. If you look at that parking lot, I mean, I guess that building's maybe 15 years old, and it's already got every parking space is just about covered because he did what they do a lot in Atlanta, which is, you know, plant trees in a relatively higher than required density. And so those would be my thoughts.
And do you know any cities that have done a RFP to manage their tree canopy?
Yeah, Charlotte.
Charlotte?
Charlotte, yes. I've got here, I don't know if I don't have a little arrow, but this is a link to the RFP. So there are models out there, you know, RFP models that you can use.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything, Patrick, that I'm missing? Okay. So the undergrounding is kind of a related topic in the sense that the more you get utilities underground, the more opportunity there is to plant, to have trees along those shaded sidewalks without having to kind of chop them up a lot to make room for the utilities. And we had previously provided a draft ordinance that was based on another city's ordinance. But, you know, the main thing I want to mention is what that does, what that draft ordinance, which I think y'all may have seen a few months ago, it really just addresses three things: funding and identifying projects and then preserving what you've done. And there, you can do each of those things kind of a different way, a lot of different ways to accomplish that. But one thing that we've learned is that the goal is consistency, consistently investing in undergrounding. But, the city of Columbia is interesting because a lot of our roads are Department of Transportation roads, right? So, the city is not really, they're maintaining the trees, but they're not really driving the projects in those places. And then you've also got other types of funding sources and project sources. You've got penny tax, you've got, Richland County, you've got Department of Transportation, you've got Dominion, which has an incentive in some areas to put utilities underground. So we mentioned this at a speech or a discussion that we had with the Midlands Business Leadership Group, their executive committee. And they suggested, that in light of all these different opportunities to coordinate undergrounding efforts, that we consider like appointing an undergrounding czar. And it's just something, it cuts across so many disciplines. It's very much a beautification piece. And I'll just mention that the surveys and roundtables that were done as part of the downtown plan and design guidelines. That was fascinating to me. I thought I was the only one that appreciated trees, but a lot of people do on the street. The top two things, what makes a great downtown street, rank in order of priority: street trees providing cooling shade for pedestrians, and a tree-lined landscape separating pedestrians from street traffic. Those were the top two things, and I'll just place this on the table.
How does that relate to communities then?
I'm sorry?
How does that relate to communities as it relates to tree canopies and, because there is a huge canopy of this city that is related to communities. How does that relate to communities?
Like neighborhoods?
Yes.
Yeah, so the tree survey, that was really my first, that's the first bullet point of the first slide. I kind of felt like we all recognize that the tree canopy is one of the things that gets people out in the neighborhood, walking on a summer day or a spring day, shaded from the sun and that sort of thing. And that's, the studies have recognized that having a tree canopy really makes for a much more pleasant neighborhood, which I think is why a lot of our neighborhoods, whether it be Elmwood, Cottontown, Shandon, neighborhoods up North Main or even to the south, have, but certainly within the city as well, have a tree canopy that people, if the city's not replenishing it, they're planting trees on their own property to the extent they can and that sort of thing.
Reverend McDowell, I would just add, Jim, that most of the city's investment historically has been along the major thoroughfares for undergrounding,
That's correct.
the gateways, if you will.
That's correct.
And using that partnership with Dominion through the non-standard service fund. And we're probably 5 or so years ahead. We've paid ahead for projects that Dominion's payback, it'll take another 5, maybe even 6 years to pay back what we've already invested. So the city's been pretty proactive in targeting those. South Main Street is one of the most recent, the work that's happening south of the Capitol. That's one of our non-standard service fund projects in partnership with Dominion. So we're looking at Bull and Elmwood, William Street extension, some of those in terms of targeted investments, but that's not in the neighborhoods that you're speaking of, so.
Because a year or two ago, we had a heat index
Yes, sir.
in Columbia that ranged to over 120, 150 degrees.
Dr.
Was it
Dow's,
similar to that?
well, it was the heat mapping project, so you saw the pockets where there weren't trees.
That's correct.
Of elevated
That's correct.
temperatures. Yes, sir.
And in some areas in communities that I serve, the heat index was lower as opposed to other general areas, particularly downtown. So, yeah, okay.
So council,
Grant or USDA grant for that.
Yeah.
Was that right?
So we had the USDA grant that was for 5 years that we were planting. We were not planting, we were actually doing education and giving trees away for the Justice 40 areas. That grant was for 5 years. It was actually canceled recently for the federal government. So, but we were targeting some of the lower income areas around town to plant trees on private property.
Okay.
And we were just delivered them, correct, Ryan?
Yeah, so the original plan was to give away 1,500 trees over a 5-year period. We gave away about 1,200 over
Okay.
6 months.
Wow.
And that was regional wide, not just.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, strategically, where were they?
So there were about 700 in the city of Columbia, about 150 in Justice 40 designated areas, which are areas that are designated as
High heat.
were in the high heat areas, stuff like that. And then the remainder of that went to Richland County, some to Lexington County, and some to Gates.
Okay.
But that grant has now been canceled, so. We're still searching.
sorry. So Councilman McDowell, that's a great point because the heat mapping project was something that we, championed and one of our members actually coordinated it. And that leads me to this second point, identifying projects. I mean, that's a great, one of the factors to consider is what did the heat map show? Where's the need?
Correct.
Right,
correct.
yeah, absolutely, 100%. And so that's what the ordinance that we, kind of circulated was a draft that had some factors and had proposed some people to make the decisions. But the point is to have a consistent, methodical way to identify priorities with, heat mapping. The results of that would be a pretty big factor. Other factors would be, is it a City of Columbia location? Is it a South Carolina Department of Transportation road? Is it, how much does it cost? Because every street doesn't cost the same,
It's gonna vary.
Right. And so the goal there on identifying projects was really how do you get the most bang for your buck? And how do you define bang for your buck? Well, you make the place look better, you address some of the heat island issues, and you do it in a way that's the most cost effective you can do it. So that's the idea. And I don't know the answers to those questions. And it would take a lot of different people sitting in a room, with different areas of expertise to figure that out. But it's something that can be done. And then the final point here is, we've made investments in the city and to do undergrounding. And I mean, the one that's shown there, is Main Street, looks fantastic. Vista looks fantastic. But occasionally what you'll see is a utility come along and they need to deliver some kind of utility to a building, and they'll put a pole, there and run a line. And, I mean, one in and of itself is not tragic, but over time, it can kind of degrade the value of your investment when you paid all the money to put it down, put it underground. So that's really the preservation component. So that and I've seen some instances around town, because I didn't even think about that, and I started looking. And there are some instances around town where those great, kind of hunter green arms with the traffic lights are now getting, wires kind of strung from them here and there. And I'm sure that there's a necessity for that, but it's something I think you want to minimize in some way. So, and just here's some examples of other cities that have done it, and obviously they're different from us. I mean, Hilton Head's different from us. It took them, 30 years, 25 years to do it, and I think on average it cost them, $300,000 a mile or something, because they don't have the challenges we have. in terms of existing, infrastructure and things. But they did it, and they did it over time, and that's really what we're suggesting is look for the low-hanging fruit, big bang for your buck projects. The other thing, some private funds and other sources kind of were put together to do it in Forest Acres there at Creighton. And, the first estimate was, it cost about $1 million to get it done. Well, over time, as people sharpened their pencils and figured out different ways to do it, it ended up being substantially less. And that's, what we're suggesting is, if you do this every year, it'll hopefully be more efficient and less resource consuming over time. And that's all I have. And I'd love to take questions.
Jim, any revisions to, I think y'all had shared a draft ordinance with the mayor a few months ago.
We did.
Any revisions to that, or is that the latest?
Well, we'd love feedback, we'd love, look, you've proposed, these people to make the decision, and we don't think they're the right decision makers. We think these people are. I mean, we'd love that kind of feedback, because, the people looking at that ordinance know a lot more about
That's right.
the dynamics and the practicalities of doing something like that. So. So we thought, today, again, just in conclusion, we thought the RFP was a very achievable starting point for the tree canopy. And now's the time to act, though. I will say that because the longer we're reactionary. I mean, I don't mean that Brian and his team are 100% reactionary. They're not at all. They are very proactive to the extent they can be, but having this tree inventory would really enable them to take it to the next level and deploy those resources of tree management to extend the life of some trees another 5 or 6 years. So that this tree that you planted, yesterday, all of a sudden is 5 to 10 years old by the time you have to take that one down. So, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So,
Thank you, Jim.
ACM Sheila, you'll share a version of the ordinance?
I will, and we'll give you some staff comments and help prepare a draft of feedback.
And it sounds like there's two things being requested, an RFP and then an ordinance.
Yes, ma'am. So we'll work with Public Works and Forestry about the tree inventory and provide some information.
I guess I'm just struggling, like, I see the value of the RFP, but the fact that we lost funding for actual trees, it's like, what do you allocate your dollars to? Being able to plant more trees or get a study done to then find out that we need more trees?
Understood, yes, ma'am.
So,
Save their trees too.
yes, and I understand that, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we can find the money, grants.
That's the thing, I think this is another thing for the legislative committee or for us to talk about as a council is, I've always thought environment was something that presidential administrations have in common. So I'm hoping that there may be some sustainability funds there that. And
Keep hope alive.
What'd you say?
So
I
keep
know.
hope alive.
The grant that was it just like Doge? Like there's no, is it on hold or is it truly cut?
It was completely canceled.
Vaporized.
Repeat that.
It was completely.
What is it that was canceled? I need an update on this.
The grant of us being able to fund 1,500 trees across the city.
It's a USDA grant.
USDA grant.
What was that cut?
Could you please?
This was cut in,
Let me know.
I wanna say March. Now, I will say this is actually separate from the money we spend every year for the 500 trees we plant in the right of way.
I know, but it was a huge deal that we
It
got
was
the
a-
federal
it was
funding
a
to
big
support.
grant.
We can only
That's
fund
why us do
500
that
trees.
on private property, it was canceled 100%. So, that's the official obligation. I actually just got a notification today that the last refund was sent to the city accounts today. So, from today, everything about that is in line. But we do have a group that's, we're working with a group that may be willing to pick up on this. Columbia Green has taken on the flag of that, they took on the Beat the Heat thing, and they're gonna move on and try to get some private funding to handle it, for some hard charging people and
I think for us, and we could probably make some calls and get an estimate of what are we talking about in terms of tree inventory, what kind of dollars are we talking
That's right.
about?
Yeah, that would be helpful too.
That's right.
Maybe we ought to do both, but I would like to Rev's point, I mean, to have a strong tree canopy is, for me, a priority.
Absolutely.
And if we're able to do both and then also have a more strategic way of preserving trees or repairing trees or whatever the right kind of terminology is, I think that's good. But if we had to choose, I would like to find a way to fill that gap.
Okay.
We need to keep our trees. So maybe we can build while climbing, hopefully.
Rev, before we close out, wanted to give you the floor to share a little bit about your press conference today, given that it covered a health topic that we talked about on the committee.
One of the things we talked about today was the importance of lifting up and making diabetes and kidney health a priority for this city. As you know, this city of ours, as well as we serve it, we understand that there are health issues that has invaded the population of our city and our nation. 29203 traditionally and historically has always been the amputation capital of the world. It's metastasized. It's a national issue as it relates to diabetes and kidney health. One of the things that we're going to do, and I thank you, Madam Chairperson, for letting me do this, it is extremely important that on May 17th, during the Black Expo, we're going to creatively put together a double whammy, I think. Not only to bring in entrepreneurial skills with the Black Expo, but to put in a health narrative. That health narrative is being funded by Prisma Health, is being funded by Johnson & Johnson, Novo Nordisk, and several other entities, not only in our cities, but other companies that's going to be doing diagnostic testing, kidney health, because kidney health and diabetes, of course, are closely related together. Why is that such a passion of mine? Is because I'm an amputee, and I tend to get around pretty good. We hadn't changed that date, have we? It is extremely important. We've already inquired, and we got the help of South Carolina Agricultural Council, Agricultural Commission. They're going to come and provide vegetables. We're putting together a nutritionist to help folk eat better. I think during this press conference today, the mayor indicated that he was keeping an eye on his A1C. And his A1C is 6.5. At least that's what he said. And he's not telling a tale. I hope he's not. 6.5 is good. Lower is better. Mine is his is 6.3 and mine is 6.5. So it's been good. It's going to get better. We're going to have vegetables. We're going to have diagnostic testing. It's going to be great. A great day in the life of the community. And a safe city is a saved city is a safe city.
So May 17th,
May 17th.
okay. Lots of resources for diabetes prevention will be available at the Black Expo.
Thank you all.
Thank you for sharing. Anything else?
Thank you, Audrey.
All right, we will go ahead and make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, we are adjourning at 2:35. Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Everybody.